One of the most enjoyable parts about creating a fictional world is establishing a magic system. Whether it's the Allomancy system of the Mistborn trilogy, the Nen system of Hunter x Hunter, or just the good old-fashioned spell magic of Harry Potter, these systems can range from intricately crafted puzzles to mysterious icebergs that even the in-universe characters don't understand. There are countless ways to build these magic systems up, and only one thing really matters: that the audience or creator enjoys it. Shonen are particularly well known for their power systems. I mean, you gotta have your characters do cool magic while they beat the shit out of each other, right? Thanks to the gargantuan target audience of teenage boys all over the world, we have tons of cool power systems that are built up in various ways. So, what better way to kick this series off than with arguably the most well-known power system of the big three, Naruto. Now, before I jump into the deep end, I do want to lay a bit of groundwork. First, I'm trying to look at these power systems through the lens of somebody who wants to get better at making interesting magic systems. That means we're avoiding hyper-specific cases and background lore. Next, we're going to also be avoiding Boruto. I don't know how much of the original series it retcons or changes, but I'm honestly just not that interested in finding out. Finally, after I go through the power system, I'm going to critique it a little bit. I doubt it'll be any new takes, and you shouldn't take what I'm saying as gospel. It's my opinion and nothing more. With all that being said, let's just get into the power system of Naruto, starting with our magic resource, Chakra. Chakra is the mixing of mental and physical energy, also known as yin release and yang release. The body has to actively mix these energies in order to produce chakra, exhausting a person's stamina in the process. Once a person has a good amount of chakra stored up, they can then use it, usually expelling it from the body in some way. This chakra isn't limitless, so everybody only has a finite amount of chakra they can create and use before they are exhausted. However, this limit can usually be increased over time through training. Chakra is carried throughout the body through the body's chakra network. The center of the network is in the torso, extending through various lines throughout the head and limbs. If these lines are blocked or hindered in any way, the chakra won't be able to flow through the body as efficiently. In addition to the network, there are 361 chakra points throughout the body. These are the points that you can expel chakra from, although the vast majority of shinobi are only able to expel chakra through their hands and feet. Now there's also another limitation to the body's chakra flow, the 8 inner gates. These gates limit the chakra flow throughout the body, usually limiting it to around 20%. Now if you've ever watched the famous Rock Lee vs Gaara fight, you know that these gates can be opened, increasing this chakra flow throughout the body at the cost of excruciating pain and extensive damage to the body. The technique to open the 8 gates is both difficult and risky to learn, resulting in only a handful of people using it throughout the series. Although these gates are risky to open, they are incredibly powerful, and opening all 8 gates can make you inconceivably powerful, but usually costs your life. Aside from the way chakra flows through the body, there's also the aspect of chakra natures. There are 5 main nature releases: fire, wind, water, earth, and lightning. Everybody inherently has one nature they can use, being a genetic trait that was passed on by their parents. The main thing these natures affect are the types of jutsu that you can perform. There are more than just these 5 nature releases, but they are all combinations of the basic 5, and we'll address those in a bit. But now that we know what chakra is, we can next learn how to use it. Once a person has created a decent amount of chakra, they can then manipulate it. Chakra manipulation tends to have 2 purposes: performing jutsu and performing physical manipulation. Starting with jutsu, we have 3 main types: ninjutsu, genjutsu, and taijutsu. First up is ninjutsu. Ninjutsu is effectively any technique that involves tools or chakra and has a physical component to it. But a lot of people just define ninjutsu as any technique that isn't considered genjutsu or taijutsu. So let's just cover those next. Genjutsu is any illusionary jutsu that involves invading another person's nervous system. That's basically it. They're very difficult to perform, but can do a ton of mental damage to a victim and are often hard to break out of. There are also power-ups that you can get to perform genjutsu more easily, but we'll mention those later as well. Last but not least, taijutsu is basically any hand-to-hand technique or any technique that doesn't explicitly require chakra. Basically every ninja is good at taijutsu, but it is extremely hard to be a high-level shinobi by only employing taijutsu. Didn't stop these 2 goobers though. As for physical manipulation, it's pretty straightforward. You can use and move the chakra around your body, concentrating it in order to do anything from standing on water to improving your durability or attack strength. No matter what you want to accomplish with your chakra, you still need the skills to manipulate it. Usually, the easiest way to manipulate chakra is through sealing, both written seals and, significantly more common, hand signs. Hand signs are very effective at shaping chakra in a particular and repeatable way, leading to basically all shinobi using them. The amount of hand signs used tends to correlate to the complexity of the jutsu. For example, the Reaper Death Seal requires 9 hand signs. Direct manipulation is kind of like mentally forcing the chakra to take a certain shape. If a shinobi is using physical manipulation to stand on water or boost their strength, then they are usually manipulating their chakra directly and aren't using hand signs. But you can also use direct manipulation to reduce the number of hand signs needed for a jutsu, or even perform the jutsu without hand signs at all. Direct manipulation is usually more difficult to perform than hand signs, but they are different skill sets. After all, Rock Lee can't use hand signs to perform ninjutsu or genjutsu, but he is able to manipulate and create chakra to boost his physical attributes. Now we know what seals of manipulation are and what they usually achieve, but we still don't know what they actually do. So to fix that, we have to look at the process of chakra transformation. There are 2 types of transformation that must occur to turn raw chakra into a more desirable form: shape transformation and nature transformation. Shape transformation is pretty simple, as it's literally shaping the chakra. This is done to determine the purpose of the jutsu being used, its size, its range, its shape, and various other properties. As for nature transformation, we've already half covered it. The chakra is essentially changed from being raw energy to being energy of a certain nature. Aside from nature transformations being pretty difficult, there are 2 other main limitations. First, the shinobi must be able to use the nature release they are transforming the chakra into. The second limitation is that the shinobi can only transform the chakra into one nature at a time. As I mentioned earlier, 2 or more of the 5 base nature releases can actually be combined to form a new nature release. Unfortunately for your average shinobi, this is limited to the next major case we'll cover, Kekkei Genkai. Kekkei Genkai tends to be the blanket term for special techniques limited to certain clans or individual shinobi. Now there is an important distinction to be made. Kekkei Genkai are strictly hereditary. Just like chakra natures, a shinobi can only inherit a Kekkei Genkai from their parents. There are other clan-specific techniques, such as the Nara clan's Shadow Possession technique, but these are just secret techniques. They're not Kekkei Genkai. Kekkei Genkai can consist of a variety of techniques, but the 2 biggest types that we see throughout the story are special natures and dojutsu. We basically already covered the special natures. They're usually just a mix of 2 or more of the 5 base chakra natures. For example, boil release is a mix of fire and water, magnet release is a mix of wind and earth, particle release is a mix of wind, earth, and fire, and so on. As for dojutsu, they probably need less introduction. After all, the 3 special eyes are some of the coolest ideas in the series, so let's start with the most legendary of the 3, the God Eye, also known as the Rinnegan. The Rinnegan are locked behind the Uchiha DLC, as you have to have Uchiha DNA and manage to obtain the chakra of Hagoromo Otsutsuki, also known as the Sage of 6 Paths. It is also possible to obtain it by combining Senju and the Uchiha DNA, which Orochimaru and Kabuto figured out at some point in the story. Also, if you're wondering why Nagato got the Rinnegan despite not being an Uchiha, it's because Madara implanted the eyes into him when he was young. And yes, that does mean that it's possible to transplant the Rinnegan into a non-Uchiha, and they'll have access to the abilities and advantages of the Rinnegan while it is in their possession. I won't go too far into what the Rinnegan actually does, but here's the gist of it. The Rinnegan gives you a massive chakra boost, but it is very hard to use without losing your sanity. It is also able to see chakra as well as the flow of chakra through a person's body. On top of this, it makes mastering any jutsu and chakra natures extremely easy to do. And last, but certainly not least, it gives the user the 6 Paths technique, which is a very large and complex topic that I won't cover. Next, let's go through the Sharingan. Of course, the Sharingan is the Kekkei Genkai of the Uchiha clan. Just being an Uchiha isn't enough, however. The Sharingan is awakened by a powerful emotional response, usually by way of some traumatizing event. After they're awakened, they can be activated pretty much at will, with the only caveat being that they expend chakra during use. The eyes also start out with a single Tomoe mark, and through more trauma and use, they'll advance to having 3 Tomoe marks. The abilities of the Sharingan are linked to the 2 different eyes of an Uchiha. One eye is the Eye of Insight, which allows the user to see chakra. This chakra vision gives them some wall hacks to a pretty limited degree, and allows them to better detect when somebody is using or sustaining a jutsu. The other ability this eye gives is an incredibly enhanced perception, so much so that they can basically see everything that is going on within their line of sight, regardless of its speed. The abilities get better as the wielder gets better, so much so that Sasuke's Sharingan was even able to perceive things at the cellular level. The final ability of the Eye of Insight is to instantly memorize and copy a Jutsu, so long as they're actually able to use the nature release that the Jutsu consists of. The other eye is the Eye of Hypnosis, which deals with Genjutsu. This eye basically allows the user to perform a variety of Genjutsu on their opponent, usually involving controlling or manipulating the target's thoughts. The two other special abilities that the eye grants are Izanagi and Izanami. Izanagi allows a person to straight up warp reality, usually for the purposes of escaping death. Izanami traps somebody in an infinite loop, meant to be a punishment for using Izanagi. The only way to escape this is to accept your fate, and no amount of power or chakra control will break you out of it otherwise. The caveat to both of these abilities is that they will immediately blind the eye that used the Jutsu. Now that we've covered the base Sharingan, let's cover the Mangekyo Sharingan. The Mangekyo Sharingan is the second form of the Sharingan, usually having a pinwheel-like design that is unique to each user. The MS is awakened by extreme trauma or emotional duress, typically being the death of a loved one or a friend. As for the abilities of the MS, it varies a lot between individual users, as we have seen everything from black all-consuming fire to extremely powerful and advanced Genjutsu. All MS users retain the abilities of the base Sharingan, and they also get access to the Susanoo, a large and powerful chakra avatar that can both attack and shield for the user. Of course, they also get a general power buff compared to the base Sharingan. Unfortunately, however, the MS isn't without its downsides. The use of MS abilities will degrade each eye's vision over time, and eventually constant use will render the user completely blind and unable to use their abilities. Now, aside from just not using one's MS abilities, there's only one way to not go blind, and that is to obtain the Eternal Mangekyo Sharingan, or the EMS. The EMS can only be obtained by transplanting the Mangekyo Sharingan eyes of a close relative. Typical Sharingan transplants give the new owner the abilities of the original user, but this transplant actually allows the users to retain their abilities. The trade-off for pulling out your eyes is being able to spam much stronger versions of your Mangekyo abilities, and even better, this no longer degrades your vision and doesn't use much chakra either. But due to the various factors and the extreme trauma necessary to even get a normal Mangekyo, the Eternal Mangekyo Sharingan is an extremely rare power that we only see two characters obtain throughout the series, those characters being Madara and Sasuke. Now that we're finally done talking about the Sharingan, let's talk about its neglected little brother, the Byakugan. The Byakugan is the Kekkei Genkai of the Hyuga clan. Unlike the Sharingan, all Hyuga possess the Byakugan from birth, although it can take considerable effort to first activate it. It can also activate spontaneously when the user is put under stress, and thereafter they can use it at will. Just like the Sharingan, it takes chakra to use and will eventually become unusable until the user has taken an adequate rest. Much like the Sharingan, the Byakugan's main upside is its insane visual prowess. They get a nearly complete 360-degree field of vision, with only a pinhole-like blind spot directly above and behind their neck. The Byakugan's visual abilities dwarf even the Sharingan by comparison, as they gain almost complete wall hacks, can focus on almost anything within their range, that range being anywhere from 50 meters to 10 kilometers, and of course, neither of these are the Byakugan's best ability, as that would be the extremely detailed view of chakra. Unlike the Sharingan, which can really only see the presence, profile, and irregularities of chakra, the Byakugan goes far more in depth. The Byakugan can see the chakra network running through any person's body. This includes all 361 chakra points in the body. Using this vision to their advantage, a Byakugan user will often use the Art of the Gentle Fist, an open palm-centric fighting style in which they blast their own chakra into the various chakra points in their opponent's body. This combination of techniques allows a Byakugan user to completely shut down or open up the chakra network of their opponent. Besides being able to absolutely wreck a person's chakra flow, they can also detect an opponent's use of Genjutsu. Unfortunately though, they aren't really given any other abilities to actually stop the use of that Genjutsu. At the very least though, they can improve the effectiveness of their own Genjutsu by using the Byakugan. There are a couple of extra abilities, but these are literally only performed by Kaguya Otsutsuki, so I'm not going to go out on a limb and say that the average Hyuga could actually do any of that stuff. But with that, that's the last of the 3 big Dojutsu covered. Now we only have a handful of topics to talk about. So let's start by talking about the literal biggest things in the Naruto series. The Tailed Beasts. The 9-tailed beasts are pieces of the 10 tails, a massive chakra monster that pretty consistently tries to destroy the world. Each of these beasts is a very powerful sentient being that is capable of existing on their own, but they're sealed into people to both keep the beasts in check and give each village a powerful weapon. The people who have tailed beasts stuck into them are called Jinchuriki. Due to the literal village-destroying beasts living inside them, Jinchurikis are often both ostracized by their comrades and targeted by their enemies. On top of this, the tailed beasts are usually fed up with the poor treatment they receive from humans, leading them to usually resenting and trying to take over their hosts. All in all, this means that the average Jinchuriki would have a very depressing life. The trade-off for a torturous social life is immense strength, as a tailed beast can give a variety of boosts and abilities to their host. The most common one is the absurd amount of powerful chakra they have at their disposal, which they will often share with the Jinchuriki for a multitude of reasons. Of course, the tailed beasts can also manifest in various ways, powering up the Jinchuriki, but often at risk of them going berserk. Past these blanket abilities, each of the tailed beasts can give some extra abilities to their hosts. Sticking with the theme of this video, we'll only talk about the boosts it gives to the hosts, not the powers that each beast has in its own manifested form. Also, a lot of this is pretty sparse information, so take what I say with a grain of salt. The 1 tail seems to give its host the ability to manipulate sand. The 2 tails gives the host fire release. The 3 tails has water release. The 4 tails has lava release. The 5 tails has boil release. The 6 tails lets the host blow bubbles. The 7 tails does nothing. But the first interesting one is the 8 tails. The 8 tails can break the host out of a genjutsu, make powerful clones of the host out of its tenta tails, and is generally a very intelligent assistant for its host B. Finally, we have the 9 tails, the tailed beast sealed inside Naruto. First, there's the fact that the 9 tails has an insane amount of chakra, having way more chakra than all of the other tailed beasts. Next, there's the various power-up forms that Naruto is able to use. In addition to those, it has adept sensory skills, even allowing it to sense negative emotions and collect chakra from its surroundings. Finally, just like the 8 tails, the 9 tails is extremely intelligent, acting as a good co-pilot in Naruto's later fights. And that pretty effectively covers the tailed beast. Again, there is more info about the tailed beasts, but it's extremely niche in most cases and is just not what I wanted to focus on in this video. But with that, we have one last topic that I really want to cover, and that's Sage Mode. If you've watched a decent way into Naruto, you are probably waiting for this to come up, so let's finish this video off with one of the coolest ideas in the series. Lying throughout the world is another type of energy that's called nature energy. This energy is extremely difficult to detect, requiring a person to sit perfectly still to even sense it. But once they're able to sense it, they're able to mix this energy with their own chakra, resulting in them getting Sage Chakra. As with everything powerful, there are some pretty high barriers to entry. First, the technique is only taught at 2 places in the entire world, those 2 places being Mount Miyaboku and the Ryuchi Cave. Next, the process is extremely dangerous, as an incorrect ratio of chakra to nature energy can result in the user being turned to stone. Last, it is only really possible for people with a very large chakra reserve to actually learn. But if the user successfully makes Sage Chakra, then they gain access to Sage Mode. Sage Mode, above all else, gives the users a big raw power buff. Better strength, better speed, better reflexes, literally everything is buffed. Jutsu are also significantly buffed, and they even gain special sensory skills, as they can sense the chakra around them and detect incoming attacks. When standing still, the Sage can continue to gather nature energy and make even more Sage Chakra. On top of all this, there's 2 other abilities that are specific to the style of Sage Mode that was learned. Mount Miyaboku's style of Sage Mode allows the user to extend their attack range with the surrounding nature energy, and the Sage Mode of Ryuchi Cave allows the user to control inorganic substances by pumping nature energy into them. Lastly, there are the drawbacks to Sage Mode. The transformation into Sage Mode requires the user to be perfectly still for a pretty long amount of time. The other main drawback is the limited duration of Sage Mode, since the user can't make more Sage Chakra without standing still. Both of these drawbacks can be mitigated in various ways, of course, but they can never be completely eliminated. And that's it. That's Naruto's power system. Yes, there were things that I didn't talk about, and a lot of specific cases that I probably missed, but anything more in-depth is probably best left to power scalers. After all, that's kind of what most of their channels revolve around. That being said, feel free to mention some of those specific cases that I might have missed. As for the analysis, there's really not that much to say. I love Naruto's power system. It's one of the OGs of shonen for a reason. And all in all, it's a very well built system that has a lot of interesting advantages, drawbacks, and a lot of variety that its characters actually take advantage of. Of course, my criticisms aren't exactly original either. There's a very obvious tonal difference between Part 1 Naruto and Part 2 Naruto. One's not inherently better than the other, but it is obvious that the scope of Naruto's power system, and by extension the power of each individual character, really got out of hand as Shippuden progressed. We went from a bunch of ninja pulling clever tricks and strategies, to these insanely large-scale fights where mountains are basically being blown apart. Which, again, I have no inherent problem with. My actual criticism, and not at all an original one, is just the obvious favoritism towards the Sharingan. The idea that there's only one cool eye and that the other eye is cool but it actually doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things is kind of lame. I get that Kaguya has the Byakugan as well, but I mean there's obvious favoritism. I mean there's a reason that none of the Hyuga are top 5 in the verse or even top 10 in the verse really, and it's just kind of lame. I won't blame Kishimoto for writing the later parts of the story the way he did. There were a lot of different ways he could have done it, and it could have been a lot worse, and people would have complained no matter what he did. So I respect his choices, even if they're kind of weird in hindsight. But I still love this magic system. A magic system that makes you fantasize about being in the role of a character is always an enjoyable experience from the audience's perspective. And I imagine it's just as fun to be the person writing it. I won't do any stupid arbitrary number ratings or anything like that, but all in all, Naruto's magic system is great. It's definitely not perfect, but it doesn't need to be. At the end of the day, it's a shining example of how to make a magic system that is fun to learn about and cool to watch. And that's it. Thanks for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, I definitely recommend checking out some of my other content. I plan on making this a series, but I also cover a lot of other topics as well. If you have any cool ideas that you'd like to share, feel free to share them in the comments. If I end up making them into a video, you can get notified by subscribing and turning notifications on. And lastly, if you enjoyed the video, give it a like. It will help out the channel a ton and let me know that you all want more of this type of content. Have a good day, stay safe, and again, thanks for watching.